Wow. Incredible. Insane scenes and heartbreak. Another 2 World Cup knockout games ticked off. And I want to break them down. I want to break them down for you guys. Give you my thoughts. Yeah. Where to start, man? Where to start? First off, I want to shout out Norway here. I want to shout out Norway. The Vikings have done it again, people. The Vikings have done it again. You know, I watched the entire game, and I'll tell you what. Even though they won 2-0, I wasn't that impressed. But I'll get to that in a bit. But first off, Brazil, man. Brazil. Now, in the last video I posted about Brazil, I had a lot to criticise about them. But I must admit, this time round, Brazil seemed much more alive. Especially out on the wings, you know. They were playing a bit more of that, you know, samba one-touch football. But Ryan and Vinny were doing a madness, I think. Right? Ryan and Vinny were doing very, very well. You could see how vulnerable the Norwegians were. Down the flanks, sorry. Short brain fog there. You know, Vinny with that beautiful pass towards Endrick, which, let's be honest with ourselves, he should be really tucking away. But yeah, you know, Brazil seem much more alive, as I say, out on those flanks. You know, just more willing to play, more. It was like that with the whole team. They were more willing to play, willing to run more, willing to, you know, go for the ball a bit more. I had the impression anyway. You know, and also the midfield, you know, Bruno Guimaraes and Casemiro and Bruno Guimaraes, you didn't really see much of. I mean, thing is with Casemiro, if you don't see him, that mainly means he's playing a good game. But yeah, as I say, the whole team just seemed more spirited, you know. But there is still one thing I want to criticise about Brazil, and that is, why the hell, against Norway, right? And no disrespect to Norway, they're an amazing team, as we've seen in this World Cup. But no disrespect to Norway, but if you're Brazil, and if you're Carlo Ancelotti, why are you parking the bus? Why are you letting Norway have that much of the ball when you clearly have enough quality to go and dominate? You know, it's just, you know, the standards have dropped significantly in Brazilian football. Significantly. You wouldn't have seen, you know, Ronaldinho, Ronaldo and Kaká park the bus against Norway all those years ago. And I know I'm bringing up the good old times for Brazil, but the truth is, the time where they were successful is the time to measure by, you know. The Brazilian shirt has some weight. Has a lot of weight, you know, ever since Pelé won 3 World Cups. That Brazil shirt just weighs different than a England shirt or a France shirt, you know. But Brazil could have won this game. Brazil could have won this game. But the truth is, the game has become too tactical. which ultimately has led to, as I say, Brazil parking the bus against Norway. You know? Carlo Ancelotti is known as a manager to be like, oh, you guys do your thing. But because it was a knockout stage, Brazil was scared. If you unfold Brazil's full potential in this game and just let them do their thing, I reckon they could have won it. And, if you're looking at the stats, then you'll obviously see that Norway dominated possession. And, in the midfield and that. But the truth is, sorry, ignore the background. But the truth is, right, of course Norway would dominate the possession if you are playing in a low block, and that's exactly what Brazil did. They tried to play on the counter, and it was really, really kind of annoying to watch because, with the quality of a Bruno Guimaraes, of a Vinny, of a Cunha who can run for days, it was just really, really annoying, right? And ultimately, given the way they played, they deserve to go out. Okay? Because they should have taken more risks. They should have, analysed the game a bit better. They should have just gone out and played at the end of the day. Okay? And then there's also the Neymar situation. The Neymar situation. And, lads, I'm not going to lie, it's over. It's over for him. It's over for Neymar. And at the end of the day, I think he should retire at this point. His legs and his body are done. He got subbed in for those last 15 minutes as an impact player. But the truth is, this isn't the Neymar of 2014. It really, really isn't. He did nothing. He did absolutely nothing. And it's painful for me to say because he is the third best player in our generation. But the truth is, Neymar did nothing. He didn't run. He only watched the ball. He had no impact whatsoever. And that obviously begs the question, would have it been better to call up João Pedro? Because João Pedro, as we've seen for Chelsea, right, last season, is a guy who can come up with a clutch goal, is a guy who can have an impact, and is a guy who could have kept Brazil in this World Cup. To be completely transparent with you. Right? And I'm just saying, it just ultimately begs the question if Neymar really, really should have come, or if João Pedro should have stayed in the squad. Because me personally, I would have said that, again, as much as this pains me, João Pedro should have stayed in the squad, right? But again, mainly because João Pedro is a guy with impact, okay? And it's just a real shame for Brazil, and a real shame as we see another chapter in Neymar's career, and maybe even the final chapter in Neymar's career close, okay? And it's just really painful to see as a football fan, but at the end of the day, they deserve the result. They got, if good or bad. So, but now I want to move on to the Norwegian side. And these guys are unbelievable. These guys are absolutely insane, right? Again, Norway had a lot of possession in midfield because Brazil were playing in a low block. Right? But the thing that I saw and that really annoyed me, right? Bear in mind, this is before the first goals, right? This is before the goals came. So, there were a couple of chances where Brazil were attacking, right? And next thing you know, they're out of position, right? You play the ball into Nusa. What does he do? As a winger, you should... Now, don't shoot at me, because I'm not a footballer at the end of the day. But as a winger, you should try and take on your man. You should try and find the most offensive play possible. Okay? And any winger with a normal working brain cell in his body, in his mind, right? With that much space that Nusa had during the counter, takes his man on, or, cuts inside, or dribbles to the byline. Right? What do I see Nusa do? Because, let's not get it twisted, Nusa has the quality. Nusa has the definite quality to take on a man, to do all the things I've just said, right? But what do I see Nusa do? I see Nusa turn around and play it to the right back. Sorry, to the left back. And I'm going, seriously? Really? You've got all these acres of space in front of you, and you decide to recycle possession? Possession? And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a definite sign that, again, the game has become too tactical, and due to the occasion, both managers were scared to take risks because it might cost them. But the truth is, those risks create moments, and those moments create goals. That's the truth. I mean, Haaland didn't have any ball contacts until, he had a couple, but the first meaningful one he had was a good ball in. He sprints towards Alisson, but he claims it, and then you've got Haaland through again, and he absolutely bullies Marquinhos and Gabriel off the ball, and almost scores. Yeah, sorry, that actually was the same moment. I was getting a bit mixed up there. But yeah, Haaland was running to the ball, see that the ball was loose, right? Absolutely bullied Gabriel and Marquinhos off the ball, but it rolled a bit too quick for him, so ultimately Alisson could keep it in, could catch it in the end. But yeah, man, it's just these moments that create goals, as I say, and I personally think that Norway should have taken more risks before the goals stood, because before the goals before the goals came, I said Norway could win this, judging by the way Brazil were playing. However, due to, as I say, them recycling possession and not really doing much, it was devastating to watch. But then, ladies and gentlemen, one thing's for sure, the Brazilians made their equation without one man in the picture. Erling Haaland. Right? Against the Ivory Coast, we thought he was out of the game, or let's say, after the France, Sweden, and Argentina Cape Verde game, we thought he was out of the equation. But if there's one thing the Premier League and the World Cup should have learned by now, or should learn by now, is that Erling Haaland doesn't need much to be lethal. The guy is unbelievable. 2 chances, 2 goals. One of them, of course, being an absolutely dominating header over, again, Gabriel Marquinhos, who, by the way, he had both of them in his back pocket. Both of them. It was absolutely lovely to watch. But as I say, Norway can't always rely on Haaland to carry them through. And the rest of the team need to take more risks. Especially the wingers, like Antonio Nusa and Saloth and all these guys. Right? Because I'm going to repeat myself again. Moments, right? Risks create moments. And moments create goals. Okay? So, but ultimately, Norway are through with a great performance, right? With a wonderful performance. Erling Haaland brace again. He is just an absolute robot, an absolute machine. Shout out Terminator. Shout out Arnold Schwarzenegger. But yeah, Brazil go out, and it's another early exit for Brazil, ladies and gentlemen. It's another early exit for Brazil for their standards, and it's goodbye for good, I think, for Neymar, which is a shame. But again, Brazil deserved the result they got ultimately. But yeah, okay. So now I just want to quickly touch on the biggest game on paper at the World Cup so far. Portugal playing Spain, of course, and first off, man, listen, I'm not Portuguese, right? I'm only looking at this from the outside in, but ultimately, Cristiano Ronaldo. The greatest, or arguably the greatest player of all time, right? I personally think it's Messi. I'd say Messi's the greatest player of all time. Ronaldo's the greatest goal scorer of all time, right? It's devastating for Ronaldo. Devastating. It's that final peak and you can't quite climb it, One thing that was a mystery for me though, why is Gonzalo Ramos not starting in a full 4-4-2? And why is Rafael Leao not starting either? Right, listen, I'm not Portuguese, but truth is, this is what I would have done in the attack. I would have gone Ronaldo and Gonzalo Ramos up top, and Francisco Conceição and Rafael Leao on the wings, right? Is it a FIFA draft? No. But I think those players would have been the most effective from minute 1, right? Because Gonzalo Ramos presses like hell, right? Which gives Ronaldo the freedom to be in and around the penalty area, right? Now, as for Spain, I just want to say quickly, before we move on to Spain, apologies, I just want to say a very, very, very late dagger by Mikel Merino to absolutely sink Portugal's dreams of lifting the World Cup this year, which is a real shame. But, it's a shame because it was a great game to watch. Both teams had chances, with Nuno Mendes' hitting the crossbar after the corner. Also, I want to shout out Diogo Costa, who, in my opinion, is the Portuguese man of the match. Absolutely amazing, absolutely insane. The saves he pulled off were incredible. You know, Portugal tried to play more on the counter, which sort of worked. They let Spain have a bit more of the ball from what I could see. And Portugal did try and create chances, which they did. But they just couldn't take them at the end of the day, unfortunately. And I think, as I say, personally, Gonzalo Ramos would have been a great player to start this game due to the impact he's had, in previous games, like Croatia, for example, where he scored that last-minute header. But ultimately, it's Portugal lost, unfortunately, and shout out to Cristiano Ronaldo, man, who has lit up the stage, club, international, World Cup, Euros, whatever you want to say, for the last 2 decades, and it's just a shame to see him go out like that. But yeah, man, that's how football is. That's how football is. And talking about how football is, Spain came, of course, with their tiki-taka, and that's ultimately what won them the game. Mikel Merino, as I say, with a late, soul-crushing dagger. But it's a beautiful passage of play. With the one-touch tiki-taka type football, and Spain are through. Another star player, of course, in this game was Lamine Yamal, of course, tearing up that right-hand side. Even though I must admit, Nuno Mendes and Pedro Neto had him under control for the most part. He only managed to get through a couple times, but you see and notice how much actually goes through Lamine Yamal in the Spain attack, and ultimately, I think, and we saw this in the Cape Verde game. So there's actual proof, but if Lamine Yamal is injured or not playing, there's an instant decrease in Spain's performance. But, Spain, again, went with the approach of their tiki-taka football, and Portugal let them have the ball, and I think that's what was the mistake, really, because Vitinha and João Neves were not really present in those midfield battles, as far as I could see, Pedri and Rodri were commanding that midfield, especially Rodri. I think Rodri had a great game, but yeah, ultimately Spain had one chance and they took it, man. Spain had one big chance and they took it, Also, shout out Unai Simon, who pulled off some jaw-dropping saves as well. But it was a very balanced game, very good game, and I think on paper it didn't quite live up to the hype it got, but it would have done with a few more goals. But again, ultimately, I think Spain dominated the midfield and were efficient in their chances, and ultimately that's what won them the game. And they are through to the quarterfinals. As I say, obviously, soul crushing for Cristiano Ronaldo and Portugal, but as I say, that's how football is, people. That's how football is. and how football is. You will see again very, very soon, as I'll be back for the next couple of match reactions shortly. And yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to wrap it up for today's video. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and do all the typical stuff so the algorithm can push my channel even further and we can hit the 100 subscribers before the end of the year. And yeah, I'm saying thank you very much for watching. Let me know what you thought of the games down below, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one, boys. Peace out.